Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. There are some additional chairs along the back row, which you are welcome to set up, but I would just ask that you keep a center aisle clear and enough room on either side that there is safe egress in the room. Thank you. And also, with that being said, there are some additional seats I'm seeing up here. And if you have an empty seat next to you, wave your hand so everyone has a place to sit if they wish. Good evening, everyone. It is a bit after 6:30, so we are going to get started. Again, there should be some extra chairs stacked along the back if you wish to have a seat during the meeting. We just ask that you keep aisles clear for safe egress in the room. Now call to order this meeting of Lancaster City Council for March 11th, 2025. A few reminders at the top of the meeting for everyone. Please take a moment to silence your phones and devices if you haven't done so already. This meeting and its participants are being recorded and live streamed. Anyone addressing council during public comment periods should please do so at the podium in order to be heard in the room and on the live stream. Please begin all comments with your name and block of residence for our meeting record. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. I will be using this light in front of me to keep time. It will turn green when 3 minutes begins. It will turn yellow when there is 1 minute remaining, and it will turn red when 3 minutes has been exhausted. And I want to thank everyone in advance for ensuring that everyone has an equal time. Also, just a meeting note, the Women's History Month resolution that was slated for this evening has been postponed until our next regular meeting. And now for all of those who are willing and able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Harris, would you please call the roll of members?
Yes, Madam President. Mr. Met.
Here.
Mr. Arroyo.
Here.
Mr. Calise.
Here.
Ms. Craig. Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Mr. Hirsch.
Here.
And President Baker.
Here. Councilor Craig is excused this evening. We will now move to the approval of the minutes of the February 25th, 2025 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any council comments on the meeting minutes? Hearing none. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Met.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Mr. Calise.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch.
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. Next item is proclamations, honors, and awards, and resolutions of recognition. Again, as I noted at the top of the meeting, the Women's History Month resolution is postponed until our next regular meeting. That will take us to our first public comment period reserved for residents who contacted the city clerk prior to the meeting to request to speak in this period. Again, comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker and must begin with your name and block of residence. Before we go into public comment, we have several, and I know that there is a topic that I believe everyone is here for. I want to just make a quick statement. I would like to ensure members of the public that the use of force review for the March 2nd incident is underway currently. The review will involve a thorough examination of all body cameras and other footage that is available. Members of council and the public will be updated on the findings when the review is completed. While I understand that the video posted online is a small part of an interaction, I agree personally that what I saw was disturbing, and I look forward to hearing the outcome of the review and from Chief Mendez during a more formal report to council from a public safety that has been requested by Councilor Ahmed that will occur at an upcoming meeting. Mr. Harris, if we could begin with public comment, please.
Yes, Madam President. First this evening is Elea Mokios.
Is Alea here?
Next is Grace Musser.
Is Grace Musser in the room? We can recall these names at the end. Next, Mr. Harris.
Andrea Hirsch. I'm sorry, Adriana Hirsch.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Council. In my capacity as the former Executive Director of the Commonweal, I got to know the youth on bikes, who we affectionately refer to as the Wheelie Kids. And like many teens their age, it took a lot of time and effort to get to know them and, more importantly, earn their trust. Teens are by no means perfect. I should know, I was once a teen. We know their frontal lobes are not developed until 25 years of age, and that they will make mistakes, sometimes the same ones, time after time. However, this does not warrant police to use force against them. When I worked with the Wheelie Kids, I would encourage safe behavior. When I witnessed lawbreaking, I instructed my staff to withhold the services they sought out weekly because your actions do have consequences. Perhaps our police could call parents and impound bicycles without resorting to force, still imparting lessons while doing less harm. Further still, I'd encourage police to use part of their community engagement budget, which they did not fully spend in 2024, to buy bike lights to give to kids. I think working to build trust with them through positive engagement would go a long way for them to follow the law. I would also encourage our police to get out of their vehicles, which by nature insulate all of us from the world around us. Police used to be beat cops, getting to know neighborhoods and neighbors. Now they drive through our city, waiting to be called to a crime. We need to know and trust our police, not to have them behind the closed doors of a police SUV. Many people think Wheelie Kids are a menace, but their bikes give them purpose. They practice tricks day and night. Meanwhile, I can barely let go of one handlebar to signal, and I've been told bikes keep them out of gangs. Perhaps with more emotional intelligence training, our police can approach our teens from a place of understanding and compassion. Thank you.
Mr. Harris, our next speaker.
Yes, Madam President. Next is Nick Silveri Hiller.
Good evening.
Evening. Nick Silveri Hiller, 500 block of North Plum Street. I'm not going to hide my frustration and anger right now because I've been living in this city for 10 years, and over those 10 years, I've seen the police repeatedly brutalize Black and brown youth in this city. When I first moved here, a couple years after I first moved here, we all saw the video of a man sitting with his hands behind his back on the sidewalk get tased in the back while following orders. That was one of my earliest introductions to Lancaster. And repeatedly in 2020, I know I've talked to you all a lot in here during 2020, I saw police officers brutalize youth in the streets protesting for their rights, including pepper spraying folks at point blank range. And I got some of that pepper spray because of the wind myself. So I've seen repeatedly this brutality that our police officers do to our communities. And it frustrates me because we see how open the city is to rich tourists and not our own neighbors. I'm a member and organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and I'm one of the co-signers of, I'm sure, the statement that you've all seen. And I just would like to reiterate those statements, and I hope other signers will reiterate them and others will repeat them. One, the demand is to reinstate the Civilian Review Board, formerly known as the Community Police Working Group that was dismantled with no reason announced to the public. Two, we call for the firing of Officer Hatfield and the names of the unidentified officers from Chief Mendez's police department present at the scene to be released. And three, for the police to uphold accountability and transparency with the community by releasing the body camera footage to the public. Many of you have put out statements calling for accountability and transparency in vague terms. These are just three of the first steps that you can take to actually demonstrate that transparency and accountability that you're boasting that you support. Thank you.
Mr. Harris.
Yes, next is Jessica Lopez.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Lopez. I'm a Lancaster City resident. I refuse to give my address out of safety concerns. I'm sure you guys understand. I'm going to start with the nice part. I appreciate Councilor Ahmed. I appreciate Councilor Arroyo. I appreciate you, Mr. Calixte. I appreciate you, Ms. Bakay. And I do appreciate you, Mr. Hurst. I'm going to start with the nice part. Your guys' statements were on the money. I appreciate you using your voice and advocating in that faction. Do I believe that City Council could possibly do a little bit more to push the education of these kids, for these kids, every year? Yes, they could, because every year we have new kids that get to ride bikes because they get old enough to ride bikes. Every year those kids grow, they don't get handed the bicycle crime code. Those kids get helmets, they get knee pads, they get sat on their bikes, they learn how to ride those bikes, and nobody tells them what the laws are. Me as a mother, before this situation transpired, I didn't know what the bike laws were. How do you expect every mother in this city to work hard, to pay taxes, and then know all your bike crime codes? Now, with that being said, it takes a village to raise a child. And our elected officials to hold those put in place to protect them accountable. Chief Mendez's police department and his absent presence in the community he grew up in and his failure to control his officers has shown the Black and brown community that they afford us no protections and that we should fear interactions with them. I do not let my children go outside. What should have been a teaching moment by officers to these kids turned into a traumatic, life-altering event. Those kids will never look at their bikes or any cop in the same way ever again. That's right. The statement that the police department released today is not only slandering these children, because prove it. Prove that each and every one of those kids that were assaulted committed those acts that still don't deserve that response. None of those things on that list says, put your hands on me. If those children are not in immediate danger to our community or to ourselves, and that doesn't mean bumping into somebody with their bike. There's no reason why those grown men with guns put their hands on them. So the police department's response.
Ms. Lopez, I'm sorry, we've gone quite a way.
Over my 3 minutes, just because I gotta get this out. The police department's response to what? To defend an officer who stood by while his fellow officer punched a man in the face in 2015? He didn't protect that man. To what? Protect the man who was listed with Ryan Yoder in a civil rights claim in 2023. To protect him who was listed 2 months ago in another civil rights lawsuit. This is all public information online.
More to come.
Because what? Yous are protecting them more than you're protecting us. At what point do you cage your dogs? The city of Lancaster is known for its gross misconduct issues, and yous continually pass the buck instead of taking responsibility and action. And Janet Diaz's statement is a prime example of the out-of-touch advocacy and gaslighting that transpires in this community. I pray you never become our mayor. The exiting mayor's silence on this situation proves she never belonged here. We are no longer accepting the status quo, and the complacency that transpires among those who we put on a pedestal is long gone. We're tired of being used and accepting abuse, disregarded, and manipulated. We are not here for yous to look good. We are not here for yous. We put y'all in place for us to protect our kids and our community. And with that, I will walk away. And like I said, I thank those who chose to use their platform to advocate for these kids. But at this point, more needs to be done. I shouldn't be getting these videos on Sunday night and spending 9 days fucking organizing this. This is wrong. I do not get paid by the city. And I'm tired of being re-traumatized every day that I open my phone up. It's not fair. And if you want me to shut up, do your jobs.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Mr. Harris, our next speaker.
Next speaker is Darlene Bird.
Ms. Bird, good evening.
Hi, Darlene Bird. First, I want to talk about two other issues before we address the police issue. 2 council meetings ago, I was here and I requested a report about how many people got tickets on the day that it snowed when our trash set out 3 weeks. I have not heard from any council person about that report or the number. I know it's very high. It's in the southeast area. I'm here again to request that report.
I have an email for you I just got this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Also, I'm here I addressed the issue about a report on how many accidents was on East End Avenue and Franklin Street, that they got a stop sign put there, when we have been requesting since 2017 that a stop sign be placed on Green and Ann Street, which is a very dangerous intersection. We have many members from the community come to this meeting and many traffic meetings, and we're not heard. And we're no longer going to say we're not going to be heard. Are we talking about safety now with the police? We requested a Citizens Review Board so many years ago. It is time that we get a Citizens Review Board to bring trust and communication into the community. Thank you.
Mr. Harris, our next speaker.
Next speaker is the Black Voter Outreach Network of Pennsylvania.
I understand that the representative for this organization could not be here this evening, so I have allowed a second speaker. I will reiterate that we need to keep equal time for everyone, please, and thank you.
Yes. I'm going to come up and hand you guys this proposed resolution. And along with that, I'm also going to hand you the City of Lancaster's commitment to racial equity that came out in 2020 that has not been put in place and we feel is not being followed.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Lopez, and I'm here today speaking on behalf of John Mena. He and I are proudly representing The Collective, a coalition following Lancaster organizations, the Black Voter Outreach Network of PA, the Democratic Socialist of America, the Lancaster Bail Fund, the Lancaster Changemakers Collective, Lancaster Stands Up, and the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Tonight, we are submitting a document for public record that outlines concerns regarding the Lancaster City Police Department's recent interactions with Black and Latino residents. Specifically, this document highlights the March 2nd, 2025 incident involving the use of force against several Latino teens, as well as other recent cases that have raised serious concerns about transparency and accountability within the department. We recognize that Chief Mendez is a lifelong Lancaster resident and a veteran officer in this city. Given his deep ties to the community, we believe it is reasonable to expect leadership that actively works to improve trust between law enforcement and the public, particularly for marginalized communities. However, the continued use of force and lack of de-escalation involving Black and Latino residences raise significant questions. What steps are being taken to prevent incidences like this from happening again? How does the police department ensure officers follow de-escalation policies before resorting to force? Why are previous uses of force reports unavailable to the public? Repeat, why are previous use of force reports unavailable to the public, and when will they be made accessible? And I guess this would go for Janet, but what does your public safety committee do? Do they work with the police directly, or are we letting them lead this? Our request tonight is straightforward. We urge the City Council to consider passing a reasonable resolution calling for an immediate, transparent, and independent review of this latest incident and public available findings. Additionally, we ask to create a formal public safety commission or authority that includes council and community members and provides oversight on policing policies. Along with the commission, we ask for a community partnership, including a civilian review board. These are measures necessary first steps to establish trust between law enforcement and the communities we they serve. Our collective formally acknowledges the Lancaster City Police Department's statement on the incident on 3/10/25. They released a vague statement that left us with more concerns than answers. This response is unacceptable and not enough. An unsigned statement informing the public of internal investigation is not reasonable, transparent, or acceptable for behavior that is a pattern. The decisions made in response to this issue will send a clear message about Lancaster City's commitment to public safety, accountability, and justice. There are opportunities here to take the first step in building trust with the community. We look forward to working collaboratively to ensure all residents feel protected, respected, and heard. Please accept this resolution on request on our behalf. We look forward to your responses. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that was John Mena, not just.
No justice, no peace.
Mr. Harris, our next speaker.
Next speaker is Darrell Legase.
Good evening.
Evening. My name is Darrell Legacy. I live in the 100 block of North Mary. Thank you for allowing me to address the council. I'm here to talk about the interaction that happened that we're probably all here for. People say that you don't know what happened before the video started. They say the kids were doing wheelies. They were going the wrong way down the street. Maybe, yeah, maybe they were. It doesn't justify having someone 2 to 3 times the weight of that kid with his knee on his back, face down, not resisting, crying for help. Like, that just, when you look at that, I don't know how you can see that and say, oh yeah, that's the right response. I hear a lot of people complain about cancel culture. They say they're afraid to be canceled for saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. What I don't see are police worried about being canceled. I don't see police officers worried about what it looks like when they kneel on someone saying they can't breathe. We've done this for 5 years, really for 100 years. And I don't see them being worried when they push someone who's recording them, which happened twice in that video. It's unacceptable. So I'm calling for 4 things. 1, release the names of all the police officers involved in that situation. Release all the body cam footage leading up to and during the encounter. Reinstate the community police working group. And require de-escalation training for all officers. To everyone here and everyone in the city, I'm asking you to record every single public police encounter from now on. And especially those with people of color. I realize I'm a white person, I am privileged, I mostly don't have to worry about this. I don't want to be here speaking tonight, but I feel like I have to be. It's your constitutional right to record police if it is in public. So I hear people say, oh, you complain about the police, and then you're the first one to go running to them when you need something. Yeah, that's the job. Okay? That's their job. No one made them become police officers. No one said they had to do this. If this is too hard, or if they're not happy, they can quit. They work for us, not the other way around.
Mr. Harris, our next speaker.
Next speaker is Megan Keller.
Is Megan here with us tonight? I'll recall the names from the beginning and hers at the end. Our next speaker, Mr. Harris.
Speaker is Jontel Tolan.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Jontel Toland, first and only block of Wise Ave. I recently saw a video that disturbed me. A toddler held at gunpoint by police was lying on the ground beside her mother, both belly down, forced into submission. So imagine being a child barely old enough to form full sentences, having to stay perfectly still so you aren't killed by a trigger-happy officer. The footage from March 2nd is equally disturbing. What we saw was not just an overreach, it was intimidation, abuse of power, and a blatant disregard for the rights of our youth. Minors stopped for lacking bike reflectors at 6:30 p.m. It's hardly a justification for detention. And yet they were treated like criminals. The law is clear. Minors cannot be questioned without a parent present, but instead of protection, these children were met with force. One even pinned down to the ground and an officer kneeling on his back. Imagine being that teenager, doing your best to remain calm while being terrified. And why shouldn't they be afraid? In a country where a 12-year-old boy was gunned down for playing a toy gun, fear is rational. Thank God some of these kids knew their rights. Thank God one of them felt the interaction, because without that recording, we might not be having this conversation. I know fear personally, and as a child too, I was abused by police. I too have felt the weight of an officer's force, and I know that trauma doesn't end when the moment is over. It lingers, leaving scars that can take years and even a lifetime to heal. Seeing the events on March 2nd chills me to my bone because I know what happens when power goes unchecked. Who is the enemy here? The children riding their bikes, or a system that continues to terrorize the most vulnerable among us? Lancaster is a city of contrast, and there is so much beauty here, yet we continue to make headlines for excessive force and police misconduct. Our history hasn't been kind to people of color, to the poor, to the unhoused, or anyone deemed marginalized, and in these moments, history repeats itself. There is a clear disconnect between some officers and the communities they are meant to serve. We cannot afford to have police officers patrolling neighborhoods they do not understand or respect. Community policing, true community policing, is about relationships, trust, guidance, and not intimidation. A missing bike reflector should be a teachable moment, not an excuse for aggression. I understand that officers are human, but a bad day for them should not become a lifelong trauma for someone else. The people of Lancaster, most importantly, our children, deserve better. They deserve to play, to exercise, to simply exist without the looming threat of police brutality. If we claim to be a just city, we must act like one. And that starts with accountability. That starts with asking why this officer is still in the force and what we should do to rectify this situation. So I also echo the coalition of local orgs who have issued the statement with the demands of reinstating the Civilian Review Board, firing Officer Hatfield, releasing body camera footage. And I ask you to think about community, think about your own children, and think about creating better dialogue with our community about how we treat one another. Thank you.
Mr. Harris. Our next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Amber Farwood.
Good evening.
Hi, my name's Amber Farward from the 700 block of 5th Street. I am a citizen of this city. I've been my entire adult life. And I am currently missing my son's first soccer practice to be here to do all this with you guys because I am a mother. This is very important to me. I want my son, I see my son in that child in that video, and I want a safe place for him to run around with his friends and have fun and ride his bike without fear. I don't feel that right now in this city. And my other point that I wanted to make is that I'm a licensed professional counselor. I've dedicated my career to working with children and advocating for them and keeping them safe. If I ever was told or saw a video of one of my clients being kneeled on by an adult, I would have to contact Child Protective Services. And I couldn't in good conscience not show up here today and ask that you all keep our children safe.
Mandatory?
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Next speaker is David Miller Glick.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is David Miller Glick, and I live on Haker Street in Lancaster City. I'm a volunteer organizer with Lancaster Stands Up, and I stand before you today as a concerned citizen and a father who is both fearful and angry. I'm angry because Officer Hatfield and all other officers who were present during the March 2 incident failed to act like adults, much less officers of the law. There is no excuse for a routine traffic stop to escalate to the point where grown men are forcing a 15 and 16-year-old to the ground with knees on their backs. It is proof of a deep moral failure on the part of the police officers involved, as well as systemic issues that will only get worse if ignored. I am disappointed by the police department's statement, which listed minor infractions such as trespassing in garages and pulling fire alarms, which was a lazy attempt to paint these boys as dangerous criminals. I would like to ask everyone in this room, who seems more dangerous, a few rowdy teenagers or the grown adults who violently pinned them to the pavement and made them fear for their lives? What we need is accountability, not excuses. My son is 9 years old. His skin is brown. He loves to ride his bike with me. I am here today because I hope he will never be a victim of the brutality like we saw on the March 2 incident. He deserves to be able to ride his bike through the city without fear of arbitrary violence from police officers who have no business wearing the badge. I demand accountability. I agree with all of the asks from the statement of re-establishing the Citizen Review Board and releasing the body cam footage, but especially Officer Hatfield needs to be fired. We need to show that his behavior was unacceptable. Even one bad apple can spoil the bunch. Thank you.
Next speaker is Susie Gomez.
Good evening. Good evening. Susie Gomez, 100 block of North Reservoir Street. Pushing an ungodly agenda while swearing an oath to protect the people is being rebuked today. You look down on us by your ignorance and can't believe that the S&P 500 is based on the Standard & Poor. You see things through the eyes of the wicked who pursue their agenda to kill, steal, and destroy. There is no unity in this administration because us as taxpayers who have expressed ourselves on this podium gets ignored, delayed, or denied. Let's talk, you say. Set up an appointment, you say. But public comments are suggestions, concerns, etc. We work too and pay you to do your job. Lancaster City has lost its customs heritage foundation, its name, Lancaster. And so Lancaster has become the home of survival. To divide and conquer has always been the quest, and you prey on the innocent hard workers because you are too busy closing down departments, relying on IT social technology with troubleshooting interruptions. The government creates funding for all cities and states, and the workers write the grants, push the intake coordinators to execute the applications to fulfill the needs of the people, while they pay their taxes to be the commonwealth that we both invest in. This is not a one-way street. Your ignorance has taught a generation to measure their work on takeaways as city contracts are being run by outsiders, permitters are forced to use benchmark, investors are catching tax breaks, and shareholders seem to be the only ones receiving equitable gain. For centuries, this city relied on volunteers, interns, graduates, and neighborhoods to find an even balance and take care of our public officers, while taking pride in the building of infrastructures, cleaning of parks, working together as one so that the baton can be passed to the next graduate who takes pride in the city engagements. But this administration has us continuously asking for loans, passing on properties to the highest bidder while handing investors lead abatement condemned properties that can be remedied by community programs such as critical repair, government funding grants to help in crisis for homelessness, lack of housing, revitalization, and more. Looking at you. Instead, it's better to pour 80% for a new turf at a baseball field than helping a taxpayer or nonprofit struggling to maintain their business. Churches are a nonprofit, but you rather open up new nonprofits. Shame on you. Last thing, I'm sorry. We are supposed to be a commonwealth, common interest. You will go down as the worst administration in Lancaster, PA, who killed the American dream and broke all the rules.
Mr. Harris, our next speaker for this comment period.
Next speaker is Mondo Reitz.
Mondo? All right, we'll recall names at the end. Next speaker then, Mr. Harris.
Marshall Miller.
Good evening.
Good evening, Marshall Miller, 100th block of East Vine Street. Thank you all for your time. I'm here to stand with my neighbors and say that the recent violent incidents involving Lancaster City Police and local teenagers were deeply disturbing and unacceptable. This and other recent videos of violent police interactions were alarming to me, and I believe they undermine the community trust in Lancaster City's police. Our police work for us. As city residents, we pay their salaries, and we have the right to demand the highest quality of service from them. I recognize that our police officers have a difficult and important job to do, and I'm thankful for the countless times they do that well. But part of their work involves accountability when we witness what appears to be a clear failure to protect our kids. These violent incidents have broken trust, and city leaders owe residents a thorough, transparent investigation into each one. I believe these recent incidents require more than a regular review. They require robust, more transparent investigations than your typical use of force reviews. Our police department owes this to residents in order to reestablish trust, and I hope that you all will help us get that done. Moving forward, what I would like to see from this chamber and city leaders is a renewed effort to recruit officers from within the city. When someone lives on your block, they are far less likely to put their knee on your kid's back for riding a bike on the sidewalk. When our officers live among us, they can know residents personally, give them a call when they see their kids in trouble or getting into trouble. That is the power of community policing, and we have to build that. And I'd like to make a practical suggestion on that front. Currently, in the city's officer recruitment process, preference points are added to applicants' test scores to help boost certain applicants based on their background and experience. For example, veterans are given 10 preference points on top of their cumulative test scores. According to state law, no other preference points can exceed this amount, but it is my understanding that we can tweak other preference points below this amount based on other criteria. Currently, in our police officer application process, 3 preference points are given to candidates who live within the city's limits for 2 years prior to their test date. Also, 3 preference points are given to candidates who can communicate in a second language. I would like you all to help increase these amounts to help increase the number of successful candidates who live in the city. I think a good place to start would be at least to double the current preference points for city residents. So that would be 6 preference points for candidates who lived within the city for at least 2 years. And I suggest we also increase the preference points for candidates who can communicate in a second language. This should help build a police force that looks like us and lives in the communities that they serve, which ultimately makes them more accountable to us, the residents who pay their salaries. Thank you for your time and service. I look forward to seeing how you take real action to change the status quo.
Mr. Harris, our next speaker.
Next speaker is Ann Torres.
Good evening.
Hi. My name is Ann Torres. I live in Lidditz. I'm here this evening with a statement on behalf of the Lancaster Democratic Socialists of America. The incident that occurred on March 2nd in Lancaster City between the Lancaster City Police and the minors riding their bikes was reprehensible. We as an organization with members who live and work in the city demand action and accountability. Police officers cannot be allowed to act with impunity. They cannot be allowed to forego city policy and use force before a de-escalation. And there is no reason why an interaction with children riding their bikes should end with high-level force and arrest. Is it policy for the Lancaster Police to violently arrest children who don't have reflectors on their bikes? We hear the concerns of the people that say, well, what happened before the camera started rolling? And to that we ask in return, when is it okay for children to be the victim of excessive use of force? Where is the line drawn? We see time and time again instances of police violence, including in our own city. When will it end? What is the final straw before people stand up and say enough and demand more from those sworn to protect us? If we allow officers involved in this police department and at large to be free from punishment, what is next? And if this is what we see when they are being recorded, what is happening when no one is looking? Statements about this incident from members on this council and to the police department talk of transparency and accountability. A good first start of this would be the following. 1, a reinstatement of the Civilian Review Board, formerly known as the Community Police Working Group. 2, the termination of Officer Hatfield and the names of the unidentified police officers from the scene who work for Chief Menace's police department to be released. 3, for the city to uphold accountability and transparency with the community by releasing the body cam footage to the public. Additionally, Lancaster DSA demands that any review of the conduct that happened on March 2nd to be evaluated by an independent third-party reviewer. The police cannot be trusted to evaluate and investigate themselves. An independent third-party investigation will allow for an unbiased review free from conflict of interest. The police officers in this city will continue to feel emboldened and increase their use of force with impunity if there are no consequences for their actions. If this is allowed to happen, we will remember this moment and who ignored their community's call to action. So please do not let us down. Help us take action now.
Mr. Harris, our next speaker.
Next speaker is Michelle Batt.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Batt. I am the president of the Lancaster Bail Fund, but I am not here today in my capacity as that president. Jessica Lopez spoke well enough for our organization and for herself. I am here as an attorney. I am Specifically, I had the privilege of serving our indigent criminal defendant population for a number of years. I have practiced criminal defense for close to a decade now. And I am deeply disturbed by what I have been seeing recently, not just the March 2nd incident, but pepper spraying of children, taking a black woman to the ground over nothing. In my practice, I have gotten good results for my clients due to police brutality. In the city, Lancaster City Police Officer police brutality. Now, I want to make something clear. I resigned from my position as Senior Assistant Public Defender in April of 2021. So what I am talking about goes back years. And I'm also here in my capacity as a Lancaster City resident. I pay taxes, and this is my most recent tax bill. My property taxes are 41% of the city's revenue.
Shame on them.
And the police bureau is 37% of the general fund expense. What are the police doing with our money to ensure community safety? You know, in the law, there's a principle called proportionality, but people, laymen, non-lawyers, we might call it common sense. How does it make sense that armed men with a monopoly on violence would be enforcing a Lancaster County city ordinance that's punishable by a maximum of $50 fine? make it make sense. And, exactly, and this ordinance indicates that lights and reflectors be on bicycles half an hour after sunset, all the way through half an hour after sunrise the next day. Do y'all know sitting here when sun set on March 2nd? I don't even think, even on the flimsiest ground, that the police have nothing to stand on here. This is straight up bullying, and I do not. Thank you. I'm about to wrap up. Thank you very much. But as a taxpayer, I do not want my money to be spent on these armed men bullying black and brown children. I have worked with black and brown children. Over the last 3 years, I have worked with black and brown children, and they are fucking gems, okay? So I want to ask a couple things. One, please consider the proposed resolution that has been introduced tonight. Please consider putting Officer Hatfield on desk duty. Please acknowledge what has happened, because a failure to acknowledge what has happened, a repetition of the bullshit excuse that the police put out on WDAL earlier is only going to serve to divide this community further. What we need is accountability. And it wouldn't hurt if you paid for these children's therapy.
Mr. Harris, our next speaker. Mr. Harris, our next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Iris Martinez.
Is Iris here? No. Our next speaker, Mr. Harris.
Jacqueline Willem?
Good evening.
Hello. My name is Jacqueline Willeman. I am a resident of the 100 block of East Clay Street, and I'm here tonight because I'm a member of the cycling community, and I'd like to speak about the recent events where the city has made the streets unsafe for everyone. On March 2nd, some young people on bikes were stopped by the Lancaster City Police Bureau. These boys did not experience safe streets despite the ongoing work by the city. Instead, they experienced quite the opposite when they were harassed and assaulted by police officers over not having front lights. A city police officer placed his knee on a kid's back over this. A city police officer shoved and harassed a woman passing by for filming their actions. A city police officer maced one of these boys. There have been some public incidences of Lancaster City Police harassing cyclists in the past, all while simultaneously breaking laws themselves regarding safe passing. Until now, nothing has escalated like the incident on March 2nd, and this incident only escalated because these kids weren't white. As has been mentioned earlier, the penalty for not having a front light after sunset is a fine of not more than $50. There is no way to justify the actions that occurred on March 2nd, no matter what happened before the video started. I am requesting that the city terminate the employment of all of the officers involved in this incident. These officers have proven that, given the opportunity, they will harm people, and one bad apple spoils the entire barrel. I would also like to request that, following these officers' terminations, the city reinstate a civilian review board. People who like to hurt people and exert power over others are a poison to our entire community, and they need to be removed from positions of power.
Mr. Harris, if my notes are correct, that was our final pre-registered public comment for this evening.
That's correct.
Thank you. I will remind folks, we do have a second comment period at the end of the meeting for issues that weren't on the agenda, which you're welcome to stay for. We do have our legislative agenda before us this evening, but if you are wishing to leave at this time, you can do so. We will move on with the meeting, and I want to thank everyone for their comments this evening.
Wasn't Mr. Hirsch going to say something about this today?
I'm so sorry.
On social media, Mr. Hirsch said he was going to speak on this today, so I was kind of wanting you to read it.
We do also have council comments further on in the agenda.
Just when I plan to make a comment.
Thank you. Yep, good point. So as we will continue with the agenda, our next item is reports requested by council. Mr. Harris, I'm confirming that we don't have any of those on the agenda this evening. Is that correct?
We do not, Madam
Thank you. All right, we will then move to reports of committees of council meetings, which were held on March 3rd, 2025. Our first is public safety. Councilor Diaz is not in the room at the moment, so we'll forgo her report. The next is Public Works Committee. Councilor Hirsch, your report.
Thank you, Council President. The Public Works Committee did meet on our committee meeting, March 3rd. There was no legislative action taken or considered, but we did hear a report from the Department of Public Works on the city's revamped Trees for People program. They gave us a lot of exciting updates about things coming this year, including the planting of 376 street trees. And you can learn more at cityoflancasterpa.gov/services/trees. And that concludes the Public Works Committee report.
Thank you very much, Councilor Hirsch. Economic Development Committee, Councilor Ahmed.
Thank you, Council President. The Economic Development Committee did not meet in our last session.
Thank you. Councilor Arroyo, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Council President. The Finance Committee did meet. We discussed Administration Bill number 1, 2025, which does appear later in the agenda for its first reading. That concludes my report, Council President.
Thank you. I will also turn to you for Community Planning Committee in the absence of Councilor Craig.
Yes, thank you. Community Planning Committee did meet during the last session. We discussed two resolutions, resolution number 20-2025, and resolution number 22-2025, which also appears later in the agenda. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Returning to Public Safety, since you're back, Councilor Diaz.
Yes, we had met and we spoke on resolution 18-2025, which would be removing all the older records and disposing them. And I would bring that up on our next agenda legislation.
Thank you. And Personnel Committee, Councilor Kleist.
Thank you, Madam President. The Personnel Committee did meet on March 3rd and review a nomination for appointment to the City Revitalization and Improvement District Authority and a reappointment to the Board of Health. That concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you very much. We will now move into our legislative agenda, where the first item are nominations for appointments. Councilor Kleist.
Thank you, Madam President. Those nominations were reviewed on March 3rd. There isn't anything to add, so I'll make a motion to appoint Stephen Rush to the City Revitalization and Improvement Zone Authority for a term from December 31st, 2024 to December 31st, 2029. And we appoint Jessica Emmy to the Board of Health for a term from March 31st, 2025 to March 31st, 2030.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the appointments. Any council comments on those? Comments from the public on the appointments? Good evening.
Good evening. My comment is on the member. The people are rejecting council, the member that, the gentleman that came in from another city to be on the board of the Revitalization Board. He does not have experience, nor did he go to any type of training in the city of Lancaster to know, like when we get graduates and we go into Act 101 or certain different members, associations to be on the board, there's steps that need to be followed with Lancaster City Alliance, and we feel that an outsider should not hold that position. So we reject the gentleman that's coming in from another city who clearly stated in our last meeting that he has no experience. I speak on behalf of the people, maybe not you. So, and you're his wife, so I understand that.
Comments to here, and everyone.
And that's fine, that's his wife, Revitalization Board, that's your wife that's talking.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Just a note for folks in the room, the CRIS board has several members. A number of them are city residents required. Some of them are open to other members in Lancaster community, including business owners. And this particular gentleman who came to our meeting on the 3rd was an appointee from Senator Scott Martin's office, which he has a seat on this board to fill. I believe he just has the one seat on this board, so we have the majority of seats to fill. This was a Senator Martin appointment that was brought before us on the 3rd. Any additional comments from the public on this one? On the appointments?
And who Senator Martin is to do that? Jose Rivera.
Thank you.
100 block of Coral Street. Now, who gave him the decision to do this?
This is written into the bylaws of the CRIS board.
So you guys are gonna hire from other cities to come here and tell us what to do or how to do our neighborhood?
Volunteer position, this is not a hire.
But still, we got alumni from McCaskey that could do that. My grandson is in college right now, he could do that. And you go and get people from outside to do that? Wow.
Thank you. And I apologize, it's not the bylaws, it's state law. I misspoke. Any additional comments from the public on the appointments before us? Good evening.
Tony Dasher, 700 block New Holland Avenue. Just for the sake of education and for future appointments, what are the amount of positions and who can appoint them for the CRIS Authority Board? How many are city exclusive? How many might be elected officials? And I guess a follow-up question to any of that is, any nominations made by elected officials or other entities, is the city allowed to request an alternative nomination be put forward? That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dastra. I don't believe we are able to ask for an alternative nomination unless there's more than one that would come before us. In this case, there was not. There's 9 members on the CRIS board, and there are 2 non-voting members which do represent Senator Scott Martin's office by state law and also city staff. Again, they're non-voting members, so the 9 members, again, 1 is an appointment from Senator Martin's office. Any additional comments from the public on the appointments?
Darlene Bird, Ann Street. I think this is an opportunity for council to help and educate the voters and the public. We come before council with nominations for many of our commissions and our authorities. There's very little information out there on what the responsibilities, what's the requirement. I feel there's a lack of reaching out, especially to the Black and brown community, to sit on these authorities and these boards, or to get more local people. Council needs to figure a way out with our technology how to educate the public about these, so when nominations are made and come up here, the information that we got today should have been out there, so we should know. So I'm just asking that council would take the time to educate people about the commissions and authorities, how long they're serving, why they're serving 10 years, why they're serving 5 years, and let us know. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public on the appointments before us?
Council President, if I may.
Councilor Ahmed.
As a member of the Personnel Committee, I do want to state that Mr. Grosh did come before the committee at the Monday meeting. Mr. Grosh was appointed. Mr. Grosh was appointed by Senator Scott Martin. He has been practicing law in the city for many years. Senator Scott Martin's office believed that he would bring a unique perspective. And we did question Mr. Grosh on how he plans to use Chris to promote equitable economic development in the city, and we felt comfortable with his answers as a personnel committee.
Gotta watch it on Thank you. Any additional comments on the appointments? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Mayor?
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo?
Aye.
Mr. Cleese? Aye. Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch?
Aye.
President Bacon?
Aye. Next item on the agenda are items for the Historic District. Mr. Harris, if you would, when you're ready.
Considering the following application and recommendation from the Historical Architectural Review Board for improvements to a property within the Heritage District, which is within the Historic District. We have one this evening, Stephen Evangelista, owner of 307 South Lime Street, requested placement of a metal picture window on the facade of a commercial building, and that application was recommended for approval by the Historical Architectural Review Board.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilor Arroyo, do you have any additional notes on this one?
Thank you, Council President. I don't have anything additional. Rebecca Geiser is here this evening if there's somewhere, if there's anything you would like to add, Ms. Geiser?
Thank you. Just one additional note that the HARB found that the change in the storefront window was an appropriate modern alteration for the use that was approved by the zoning hearing board, and they unanimously recommended this approval.
Thank you. Any additional council comments on the recommendation? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Matt?
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo?
Aye.
Mr. Cleese?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch?
Aye.
And President Bacon?
Aye. Next item on the agenda, these are ordinance. This is an ordinance for first reading. Again, there's no action being taken on this one tonight. It's Administration Bill Number 1, 2025. Mr. Harris.
An ordinance authorizing the incurrence of non-electoral debt of the city of Lancaster, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, by the issuance of principal amount of general obligation bonds, series of 2025, issued for the purpose of providing funds for one, general municipal projects, including upgrades and improvements to the city's wastewater collection and treatment facilities, the city's water treatment and distribution facilities, the city's parks and related facilities, the streets and traffic signals within the city and related facilities, each is set forth on Exhibit A, attached hereto, and other capital projects of the city as determined by the city. 2, capitalizing interest on the bonds, and 3, paying the cost of issuing and insuring the bonds, determining to sell the series of 2025 bonds, the 2025 bonds, at a private sale by invitation, approving the form of the series of the 2025 bonds, fixing the number, date, interest, and maturities of the 2025 bonds, making a covenant for the payment of the debt service of the 2025 bonds, pledging the full faith, credit, and taxing power of this city in support of such bonds, providing for the filing of required documents, providing for the appointment of a sinking fund depository for the 2025 bonds, and authorizing execution, sale, and delivery thereof, and other necessary action.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. It's a lengthy title, and I appreciate that. Councilor Arroyo, do you have anything to add at this time?
Nothing much to add, just that the expected total amount of the bonds is expected to be $38.4 million for projects that should be completed within the next 3 years. That's all.
Thank you. I'll make a note, this was in my notes from from the committee meeting that the indebtedness was a part of our 10-year projections that council was provided with over the course of the last year plus. So this isn't new in planning. This is just simply actually taking out the bonds that were projected to be done. Is that correct to your notes?
That's
Thank
correct.
you.
That's President.
Great. Any additional council comments? Again, this is a first reading tonight, so there's no action being taken. From the public. Good evening.
Tony Dastra, 700 block New Holland Avenue. I only have a question as it relates to trash billing, actually, because, I think this gets a little weird and complicated for me because utilities are supposed to generate enough revenue to service themselves. Definitely recognize that when your utilities need work, you got to finance the project somehow, otherwise you're drinking crap water. So I'm not knocking that, but I would like to know what the status is of the most recent, I don't know if we've requested the PUC change our rates for out-of-city trash billing customers, so I just would like to know the status of that since it kind of relates to financing of these sort of projects.
Thank you, Mr. Dastra. To my understanding, we don't have any customers in trash outside of the city. Anyone?
Sorry. Yeah, sewer.
Okay, so you're
Sorry.
relating to sewer, not trash.
Yeah, I don't know why I was saying trash.
Thank you. Water and sewer rate cases for outside of the city, I believe, have already started to be filed. Does anyone have recollection of that in their notes? I don't have them in front of me, but I believe I recall that. Director Tina Campbell. I didn't see you back there. Thank you.
Yes, so the water rate has already started. The sewer rate will start once the water rate is complete later this year.
Thank you for that clarification. Any additional comments on this one for first reading tonight? Again, no actions being taken this evening. Good evening.
Good evening, Susie Gomez. This presentation that was done a week ago on this bond, Lancaster City is paying for contaminated water. That's number one. You got funding from $9 million to $7 million to fix pipes, lead, all this stuff. And you still want to attack the homeowners and the residents to change their lead pipes. What are you going to do in terms of offering them some type of solution, rather than be like my father, where the city came in and said, we need to go in to replace these pipes. We have to see if you have lead pipes. And then told him, oh yeah, you need to replace this. And then my father said, well, how much is it going to cost? It was close to $5,000. And when he came here to the city and shared with the individual who's in charge of this, that he wasn't able to pay, they wanted to condemn the property that he lives in. You guys need to be a little bit more accountable for everything, and it's unfair. Now, the bond, the guy mentioned borrowing to save more tomorrow. This is a long-term borrowing process that's going to take 25 years of taxpayers' money that we're going to have to repay. I don't think Tina Campbell did a great job in introducing this to the public because many of us are still confused. Okay? We have the right to know details, and we have the right to hold you accountable in any proceedings that has in this city, especially neighborhood engagement. That.
Ms. Gomez, please address your comments to council.
So, I say that because there's not enough information that is being given to the taxpayers in Lancaster City about decisions that you guys are making that we have to follow protocol on.
I just wish that I need everybody in the room to please come to order. We will have decorum during the meeting. Ms. Gomez, please continue your comments. This does not go against your time.
The debt is $391 million, and I'm not saying that this occurred in the last 2 years. I'm saying that this occurred in the last 7 years. The water issue that we have in the plant was known 30 years ago. We are sitting on our last 10 years as to whether or not you guys raised enough money to change that water system that is decades, if not centuries old. And we have to stand here and watch increases in our utility bills, but you guys don't have no remedy. It is shameful. Okay? There's a woman on Fremont Street who took a shower and her skin was literally peeling, and you guys went in and replaced her pipes and then sent her a letter. We have lead in our water. We know these things. What is the solution? To tax us more money? To make it more harder for the average American citizen, for the taxpayers in Lancaster City to provide food on their table for their children? You guys don't have no solutions. You keep hiring outsiders to conduct business in our city that don't know shit about Lancaster.
Thank you, Ms. I'll remind council that the detailed list of projects were included with the bill and are posted and publicly available. They do include infrastructure improvements for lead line replacement and transite aging pipe replacement. So this is in part paying for the infrastructure that is long overdue and has been long deferred in the city of Lancaster. Any additional comments on the first reading of this bill? Again, no council action will be taken this evening.
I just wanted to take a moment to ask
Please
that.
begin with your name.
Sorry, my name is Taylor Raymond. I live on the 500 block of St. Joseph Street. I just wanted to take a moment to ask the city clerk to please speak up. I was having trouble hearing them.
Thank you. Noted. Any additional comments on the ordinance for first reading? Good evening.
Hi, my name is Lucas. I live in the 400 block of West Marion. Just so the public has knowledge of where to find this, where could we look at these ordinances before next meeting?
Great question. All of our proposed legislation and proposed resolutions are listed on the city website under City Council. If you go to the top, across the top, it says City Government. You can click to Council. The bottom of the page, there are blocks where you can click to see proposed resolutions, adopted resolutions, proposed legislation, those are bills, and adopted legislation. So bills that have been adopted by council, they go back for many, many meetings, and agendas for all meetings, once they're finalized, are available in the same place, as well as links to our YouTube page for watching recordings of previous meetings or watching them live. So, thank you. Any additional comments on the bill before us? Again, for first reading, no actions to be taken tonight. Hearing none, we'll close that. We'll move on to our next item on our agenda. This is resolutions. Resolutions. We begin with resolution number 18, 2025. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster authorizing the disposal of certain obsolete records in conformity with the retention and disposition schedule for records of Pennsylvania municipalities.
Council President, if I may.
Councilor Ahmed.
Council President, as you previously mentioned at the start of the meeting, I had made a requested report for our next meeting of council from the public safety. And although this is a routine resolution, I believe it is best to table it until we have that report at our next meeting. So I make a motion to table this resolution until our next meeting of council after the report requested.
The resolution is not on the table yet in order to be tabled.
Okay, so we need a motion to move it forward before a motion to table.
Yeah, we need a motion and a second in order to bring it to the...
Great, I will make a motion to bring it forward.
Second.
And we have a second. Then Councilor Ahmed, is your motion this evening to table until which date?
Until our next meeting of council, and after we have the report that was requested.
Thank you. Do we have a second to table?
Second.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harris, if you would call the roll to vote to table this item this evening.
Mr. Madden? Aye. Mr. Roy?
Aye.
Mr. Please?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch?
Aye.
And President Bacon?
Aye. Thank you. This is tabled until our next meeting. Our next resolution before us this evening is resolution number 19, 2025. If you would please, Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster appointing special counsel for the City of Lancaster.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilors, we spoke at this at the March 3rd meeting. This is to appoint special counsel to assist us during our negotiation process with our collective bargaining agreement through the next year. This doesn't commit us to spend any money. We heard a report from, I believe, Director Tina Campbell on this, stating that it is an hourly rate that we would pay if we choose to, or we do engage the council, but we must adopt this resolution in order to use their services. Are there any additional council comments on the resolution? From the public? Mr. Rath.
Tony Dastra, 700 block of New Holland Avenue. Question of clarification, this collective bargaining, does it affect the collective bargaining for the police union?
No, it does not. This is our AFSCME against this.
AFSCME, okay, not the police, okay. Thank you.
Any additional comments from the public on the resolution? Ms. Gomez.
Yeah, I just want to make the public aware that the fees would be $365 an hour or some cost to that effect for this counsel or attorney. Can you clarify that?
Mr. Harris, do we have that in our notes from the previous meeting? I don't have my notes in front of me. It was something to akin to that.
It was in the minutes of the previous meeting.
And it was in the minutes, thank you. Give me just a moment, and I will be happy to find it for you.
Yeah. That way we can inform the public on things going on.
At the end of the meeting. Here. $365 an hour would be the hourly rate if we choose and we do use the attorney during this year.
Yeah. From taxpayer dollars. Because you can't do your job.
Any additional any additional comments from the public on Resolution 19? Good evening.
Good evening. Nicholas Rodriguez, 100 block of East Walnut Street. Just for clarification and education, could you describe some use cases where it would be necessary for either the city or the council to call on this special counsel?
Sure. These are for labor negotiations specifically. Director Campbell, if you could provide a little bit of insight on ways that we may have used special counsel for labor negotiations in the past. These aren't criminal or civil court cases. These are not courtroom. I don't want to mischaracterize them as mediation, but perhaps you could provide some insight on that.
Yeah, it's not called mediation, but it's similar to that. So they would potentially help with negotiations if we get to a point where we can't agree on certain things within the contracts. Those would be negotiated through the attorney. They would also help us to make sure that the contract language is clear so that there's no questions about that for the AFSCME employees moving forward.
So if we choose to engage them, that would be the point that we do.
Correct.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the public on the resolution?
Hello again. Just regarding the previous comments. So they wouldn't be paid or charged until we engage with them in regards to possible arbitrations?
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Any additional comments from the public on the resolution? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Met? Aye. Mr. Roya?
Aye.
Mr. Cleese? Aye. Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch? Aye. President Bacon?
Aye. Our next resolution is resolution number 20, 2025. Mr. Harris, if you would.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster approving the adoption of an amendment to the Act 537 Official Sewage Facilities Plan for the City of Lancaster.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Council President. This resolution is to expand the sewage capacity. This specific plan amendment is for a single building containing 4 apartments, and it's going to be constructed on a vacant lot.
Thank you very much, Councilor Arroyo. I also have in my notes from the previous meeting that this is a property that's outside of the city, so it's sewer for non-resident account holders. And I'll just remind the public that we do sewage facilities plan modules every time there is any sort of development, and it's done to ensure that we have sewage capacity. So by passing this, the city has found that we have capacity for the project. Are there any additional council comments on the resolution? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Madden?
Aye.
Mr. Roy?
Aye.
Mr. Place?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch?
Aye.
And President Baker?
Aye. And we also have Resolution 22, 2025. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster approving the adoption of an amendment to the Act 537 Official Sewage Facilities Plan for the City of Lancaster.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilor Roy.
Thank you, Council President. Similar to the last resolution, except this one is for the construction of 3 new single-family attached homes on 617 Fremont Street.
Thank you very much. Any council comments on the resolution? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Madden?
Aye.
Mr. Roy?
Aye.
Mr. Place?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Hirsch?
Aye.
And President Baker?
Aye. That concludes our legislative agenda this evening. We now move to our second public comment period. This is open for items that were not previously on the agenda. Duration of comments, again, is 3 minutes per speaker, and please begin with your name and your block of residence for our meeting record. If you'd like to make a public comment, please proceed to the podium at this time. Good evening.
Hi, Jose Rivera, 100 block of Coral Street. This Saturday at Crystal Park, the West Crystal Volunteers will be helping and supporting Janet Diaz, and will be giving out reflectors for the bikes for kids. If you guys want to come down and join us, we'll be at Crystal Park from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. So we'll be doing that in our neighborhood. Make sure the kids get their reflectors, because that was the reason they were stopped. Am I right?
Right.
And they brought night. We would. All right. So we will be giving out reflectors. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Cordell Booth, 400 block of Locust Street. Here to talk about my friends who got assaulted by the police. I know that there were a bunch of comments made tonight, but those were by adults who don't know these kids. Those 3 kids I know and I go to school with. When I watched that, oh my gosh, I watched that post 5 times that night when I saw it. Broke my heart immediately. I didn't know them actually, but I've been working on getting to know them, and I've been creating a better relationship with them because of this. I'm a student representative on my school board. I plan to bring it up then next Tuesday at our meeting, because, and honestly, it's fine. It's not okay because our school district hasn't said a word about it. And those are our students, and that's not okay. I'm a member of the Neighborhood Leadership Academy at McCaskey High School. I'm gonna bring it up tomorrow when we have our meeting, because other students at my school need to know what is going on in my community and our community. Sorry, I'm kind of trembling. It's kind of hard for me to talk about without getting emotional, because this isn't okay. And it's been going on for hundreds of years, and it's not okay anymore. And I'm not gonna sit back like I did in 2020 and just watch it happen. I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna use my voice and I'm gonna tell you guys. But yeah, I call for the firing of Officer Hatfield and any of the other officers that were just randomly unnamed, which is not okay also, because they were there too. They could have stopped this bullshit from happening, but they didn't. And that's also not okay. Yeah, I didn't write anything down, so thank you.
Thank you for coming here tonight. Additional comments from the public?
Hello, good evening. My name is Patrice Richards. I live on the 300 block of New Dorwart. To piggyback off of the students not knowing, my husband is a teacher in the district. He did not know about this until I told him I was going to be coming here this evening. He ran into a former student of his who is now going to McCaskey, who cycles. My husband is also a cyclist, and he said in this interaction with the student, he was harassed by a police officer telling him he should not be riding his bike on the street, and that he actually should be on the pavement. So I think it's really funny that we're getting on the cases about children not knowing about reflectors, lights, et cetera, and police officers don't even know what they're enforcing. And my concern is that this child is now going to be on the pavement, and he's going to run into an officer that says, you're supposed to be on the street. And he's going to relay, no, I was told to be on the pavement, and then another incident like this can occur. So not only do the babies need to know about the traffic laws, we as the adults need to know, but also the people who are enforcing the traffic laws should know about that. He literally told me this as I was walking out the house, and that's not okay. Just like for us as citizens, ignorance of the law isn't enough to be exempt from it. It goes for the people who are actually doing the policing and the enforcing. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jenny Calabrese. I live on the 500 block of North Street, and I'm nervous to public speak, and I think it always helps to call that out. I believe that knowledge is power, and so I want to share some context on the history of the police state. The first sort of like official, unofficial police state that we saw in America was in the 1700s in the Carolinas. They were called slave patrols. Slavery was central to the economy, and so these slave patrols were one of the most egregious treatments of mankind in human history. They were especially cruel in the ways that they captured runaway slaves and punished them for daring escape, and this was the start of policing in America. After slavery was abolished during the Reconstruction era, cruelty was the policing style, and police were used as a way to provide a sense of security for white communities, and they aimed to keep Black communities intimidated and segregated from the white population. Knowledge is power. The police state started as a way to control Black and brown people in this country. That has not changed. That does not change if we cannot recognize that that is the truth of American history and the police state in this country. Black and brown people have historically been brutalized at the hands of people in power, starting in the 1700s alone, just in a police state, not even acknowledging the slave trade that started before that. They have historically been brutalized at the hands of people in power, and they are equally neglected the benefit of the doubt, which is always afforded to white people. Always. We need to call this what it is. It is a clear abuse of power we've seen play out over hundreds and hundreds of years of history. Next, I want to say that every single person sitting in this room, every person is in this room because they were a kid and they survived being a kid. Black and brown kids are also kids. Those kids riding their bikes are also kids, and they deserve to be kids, and they deserve to grow up. They deserve to grow up in this city, in this community, with their neighbors and friends and people who care about them and look out for them and protect them, and who signed an oath and took a position of power to protect them and then continue to neglect to do that. There's not a single human being in this city, on this earth, who deserves to take that right away from them. And this was absolutely wrong and unacceptable. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Taylor Enterline. I live in the Manheim Borough. I work in the city and have basically grown up in the city. I'm also one of the organizers, part of the collective statement that we have put out. So many thoughts, and I want to point out the absence of the mayor, because our demands really need to be said to her and all of y'all, that a civilian review board is needed. I know that there was this police working group. Supposedly it has transitioned in 2024, and since the 3 months we have been in 2025, we have seen the escalation of police violence that has been recorded. That has been recorded from the violence on Black and brown people and Black and brown children in our community. And also, this happened on March 2nd. All of us saw the videos on that following Friday, and then all of these statements have came out, and I won't reiterate what people have said, but the statement from the police is unacceptable. I am wondering specifically for Councilmember Arroyo and Diaz, as future mayor of this city, what are your plans to implement to ensure trust in our community, for the police, to promote public safety, to work with the organizations that are reaching out to try and better like these commitments? And so I will just leave it at that, and to really sit with like the student who just spoke, and who the Black and brown children who are experiencing this, as a person who also went through the police violence of this city from 2020, and now we're about to put kids through the system because of the charges they're putting out that, again, should just be a fine. And had to go through that trauma is unacceptable. It's trauma, and it's reiteration of that power that they are trying to put on the Black and brown people and the children, and it's not okay, and it's unacceptable. Thank you.
Darlene Bird, Ann Street. I just want to make some clarity. We're talking about having a review board. The city of Lancaster has never had an independent police review board or a community review board. We keep talking about reinstating it. There was not one. The review board needs to have some teeth to it. A lot of this was brought up when we used to have public safety meetings, and council would have a day that they met, and you would get to come in and discuss public safety issues and the other different departments. So maybe before a lot of your time. But this was addressed then, and I just want to make that clear. When we're asking for a review board, we're asking for something that has teeth, not what we've had, but something new. And we're asking council to act on it now. We don't want to wait till we get a new mayor. We don't want to wait till we get 4 new councilmen. This is something, or councilwomen, this is something that we can do right now. And I think you have heard from the public, and we're asking council to take action on this and go ahead and let's have this independent review board. Thank you.
Pastor Kevin Brown of Kingdom Life International Assembly, 900 East King Street. I did not come prepared to speak tonight, but it is obvious that there's tension in the community about this incident and about the ongoing issues with the police department and the public. It has reached a situation where now the youth are at risk because there is not a proper relationship between law enforcement and the community. My question is, since we have already And I know that I've been a part of conversations about having a community review board years ago, and there was no real attention given to it. I am saddened that the mayor and the chief of police is not here tonight. Because the mayor and the chief of police should be answering to the behaviors of the officers that committed these atrocities with the community. And I would like to suggest that after a proper investigation is initiated and Officer Hatfield and the others are removed from their position, so that there is no further controversy in that regard about whether a police officer who has already committed an atrocity towards the community is still allowed to execute policing, that the Public Safety Committee would possibly do a town hall meeting, and with the mayor and the police chief being there to hear from the community what should be needed to rectify this situation, as well as ongoing efforts to try to bring some healing to this situation with the disparities between the police or law enforcement and the community. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. Thanks so much for hearing our comments tonight. My name is Samantha Swigert. I'm on the 100 block of North Ann Street. I had not seen the police's response to the police response until this evening when I looked it up, and I just wanted to call attention to something that caught my eye. It reads, "The individuals involved in the incident have had several interactions with the police bureau for trespassing in garages, pulling fire alarms, blocking travel lanes, riding near pedestrians, and causing traffic issues, putting others and themselves in danger. And I just want to point out that that sounds like any given day at the high school, middle school, Boys and Girls Club, the mix in the hallways. Like, these are kids. They sound like they're being kids. It sounds like a prefrontal cortex that isn't fully formed and won't be for another 10 years if we're talking about the individuals that were involved in the March 2nd incident. And I bring this recent police incident of brutality up, and I bring this up because I have a background in working with youth. I have friends who work with youth. I have friends who are teachers and staff at schools, many of whom make far less than our police force do. And they would never be allowed to treat a child in this way. Kids get annoying, they do silly things, and then they get sent to detention, and we do some repair work. That's not what happened here. If a professional that works with youth ever acted in this way with a youth, they would be barred from working with youth moving forward, and it would follow them. It would follow them throughout their entire professional career thereafter. So if we're looking at our teachers and our youth development professionals, and we demand that level of accountability with folks who work with youth on a daily basis and deal with these kinds of incidents every day, then I think we need to hold the same level of accountability for the folks that our tax-paying dollars go toward. Thank you.
Hello, Matt Hoyer. I live on the 600 block of West Chestnut. Before I begin, I would like to echo the sentiments that have been expressed tonight. But I'm here today to ask that the city re-examine the pedestrian safety of the intersection of College Avenue, Pearl Street, and Columbia Avenue. Current situation, the intersection's focused around Columbia, with Pearl and College being offsets. The traffic signals are in order Columbia, Pearl, College, and the pedestrian crossings illuminate with the green light. This is normal for many intersections, but I believe that this is a bad idea for this particular one. This is because drivers making left turns out of Pearl and College tend to charge through the intersection without paying attention to the crosswalks. And unless someone's already in the middle of the street, then they may not get a chance to cross until all the red light runners have gone through. And if you don't think there's red light runners, then you have not been a pedestrian. This is something that I have both seen and experienced many times personally, including, for example, last Friday around 2:30 p.m., where I watched a jogger not able to cross the intersection until all 20 cars had gone through. I believe that fixing this issue is especially important because of two nearby bus stops at Columbia and Pearl and Columbia and Ruby, which serve the Millersville and Columbia bus routes. In fact, this is the main reason why I personally tend to cross Columbia at this point. I understand that there's only so much that the city can do due to the wonky nature of the built environment. However, I'd still like to see the city do something in regards to pedestrian safety, to make pedestrians feel safer crossing this intersection in accordance with its own Safe Streets plan. My suggestion is to light the pedestrian signals at Pearl and College a few seconds before the green light, much like the city does with its downtown area, in order to give pedestrians a chance to get into the intersection so that the drivers can actually see them and then maybe hesitate. Frankly, I don't know the actual numbers, but frankly, I'd be surprised that more people haven't been hit, injured, killed at this intersection. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good evening again.
Good evening. Nicholas Rodriguez, 100 block of East Walnut. I've lived in Lancaster since I was about 3. I went to McCaskey. I don't have experience working with children, but I have experience as a child a few years ago. I'm Puerto Rican, as you can see, visibly brown. And growing up, I was always told, don't call the police on someone you're not willing to see dead. And for good reason, because once you make that call, that power is out of your hands. And I've seen a lot of situations where it would be helpful to have a third party to, at least separate the people involved, instances of domestic violence, things of that nature. But when there's that potential of this, do I want to see this person permanently punished? Do I want to see this person's life ruined, or do I just need them to stop what they're doing now? When you're given that choice, a lot of people are going to understandably choose not to engage the police, which then makes them feel less unsafe, because your only other option is try to argue with this person, or a nuclear weapon. You're going to, try to stick it out even though you will continue to be in danger. And a lot of people said, I think it's honestly unfair for the chief of police and the mayor to not be here to saddle all of our public comments with you all. You have an important job, but it's limited in scope. The specific things you can do aren't as, the mayor and the chief can change things immediately. There's only so much you all can do. Thank you for hearing us all out.
Thank you.
Tony Dasher, 700 Block New Holland Avenue. Before I forget, I want to actually agree with Mr. Matt Boyer back there that there should be a study done at that intersection, and if a study is done, I'd encourage you to look into evaluating all-way stops or all-way crossings where everything's a pedestrian crossing all at once. I think they're great, but I digress because that's not why we're here tonight, or at least not why I came tonight. I agree with the members of the public that are upset that the mayor is not here tonight, as well as the chief of police. Ultimately, like, I don't want to give too much flack here, but like, ultimately, the mayor is the conductor of the concert that is police, and chief of police is first violin. You guys are like the rhythm section, like you're important. You have the ability to push this concert forward or bring it back. But that being said, it is a concert, and this issue of policing should become increasingly important for our local communities as we are concerned with federal destabilization. You know, ultimately, a people needs to be in concert with its people who have force, because we are living in an era where we don't know who's necessarily fighting for our rights anymore. We want to know that our police are doing that. You know, I understand where everybody's coming with, we need to fire Officer Hatfield, I believe it is, but we also have the problem of there's a police union. There are procedures for terminating officers, and those sometimes come in conflict with what we're looking to see as a community at a certain point in time. So the investigations need to continue, but it doesn't remove the fact that right now there's clearly a disconnect between the public and policing. And I also agree with the public sentiments that we really need to establish the Citizen Review Board. In the 21st century, we don't get the opportunity to do these internal investigations where the evidence is in the police headquarters and it's reviewed or taken to a third party. We are living in an era where everyone is an investigator, everyone's a reporter, everyone has a camera. So we really should aim to have a more cohesive process for how we can work through these issues, because ultimately we need a good police force. We need to know who's on our side. This is a complicated matter, but we have unfortunately been through this use of force concern before. We need to break this cycle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Lucas again from 400 West Marion. Based on all these comments today, I believe we are all under the impression that, in a way, we are under fire from the police. That being said, there is a disturbing trend within this country of the gradual and continual militarization of police. We cannot be expected to be protected by a force who treats us as a threat and as prey. And that is how a lot of these people are being trained. Either they're having retreats and going on these specific, being taught by tutors who teach these officers to treat us as constant threats. When we do have a citizen review board, not if, when we have a citizen review board, I believe it's a necessity that we also take a good look at how we are training our officers. And if these individuals are coming from the military, that they are receiving the proper therapy and trauma care that they need to come back from an active combat zone into civilian life. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi. Okay, good. I don't really talk into microphones all day, so I'm going to try and make this as streamlined as possible.
If you could just begin with your name and block of residence.
Yep, my name is Roe Potter. I'm on the 600 block of South Franklin Street. Wasn't really sure how that worked until I got up here. I come here tonight not fully educated on what was going on with the car, the cops stopping the two young individuals earlier in the week. And it took my partner bringing it to my attention for me to get a reaction out of it. And this is important to me because I'm sweaty, stinky, and smelly from spending all day educating and working with kids for the YWCA. Thank you. I see a few of my YW friends around here somewhere. I can't pinpoint you, but I see you. I spend all day working with these kids and telling them to look up to the people that are making our laws and running our country. And I gotta tell them, the President of the United States or a government official isn't exactly what's going to change the footing of our society. And in fact, I think everyone should look around at who's actually here tonight and who left midway to give their comments in the beginning. This is actually who's listening, who's affected, and who is going to make the change. They can listen, but it's like my friend said before, they are the people stopping the main comments from getting to the top. So what we say actually matters, but what we do and what we rally is actually way more important than me getting up here and saying this on a microphone. So please, everyone, look at each other, get a name, get a phone number, get an Instagram or whatever. Talk, organize. We don't have to put up with this. We really don't. We really don't.
Jessica Lopez, Lancaster resident. I promise I'm not coming back to Yellow Juice. One, let me say that, yes, there are unions. And you still, without union issues, put that man on a desk. Don't let him out of his office. You don't want to fire him? He's hiding behind the union. Put him in the office. Do not give him a gun. Do not allow him to run around our city. No union can stop you from doing that. And yes, I get it. Y'all are not the key element in this movement, but you are here to uphold the one person who is supposed to uphold the chief. So yes, this is on yous. And I get it. Some of y'all like her. Y'all are not here to protect her feelings. Yous are here to protect us. And then in that protection, I ask, what does the Safety Working Committee do? Is it to prevent and protect and bring safety measures before the issue? Or is it to allow an issue to bust out and then be like, oh, come to Crystal Park, we'll give you free reflectors? You're too late, Janet. It was your job as the safety committee to have this education put out before those panhandling notices came out, because y'all managed to do that real quickly. I'm disgusted, beyond disgusted. We're not tired of the white representative. We're not tired of the black representative. We're tired of the complacent representative that thinks they're gonna come in here, lean back, be comfortable, and capitalize off of us. That's what we're tired of, Janet. So you could quote me on that. And to the guy that just came up here, I want you to know that those people that left, they work tirelessly, day in and day out, to clean this city up. Not every one of them, but understand that we don't get paid for all our hours. Heck, I just started working for the bail fund. I've been doing this. I've been coming to see y'all for how many years now? I just started getting paid for this. Yay! And yes, I reiterate that it is up to the city to educate these children, and it is up now to our community to give them those reflectors. We don't need our kids around you gaslighting like that.
Good evening. Diane Desmond. I live off Route 30, stone's throw away from the state police. So I wanted to, in the interest of keeping the council accountable, there was a promise during the first round of public comments that you would recall the names of the people who were not first there. And I just was hoping that you could do that.
Yeah, I typically do that at the very end. I see
Thank
the
you.
folks behind you, and I am planning to do so, so thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sobeda Rosa, former Lancaster City resident. Now I live in Lancaster Township. And I also, yes. Sobeda Rosa, formerly Lancaster City resident, current Lancaster Township resident, also co-founder of the Lancaster Changemakers Collective. I've heard a lot of people talk about that there's not a proper relationship between the police and the community, but there is a presence. There is a presence in the schools. The school district pays for school resource officers. What are they doing if not educating the students on how they can ride bicycles in their own community? That is very confusing to me. Also, the police do their rounds, at least in the southeast. When I visit my grandparents, when I visit my friends, they are doing their rounds. Their presence is known. Those SUVs, you can see them coming, but they are not talking to the people that live in those communities. That is crazy to me. Also, the police made this statement on March 10th. This incident happened on March 2nd. So without public outrage, were they not going to address it? Was nothing going to happen? Was no investigation going to happen? Are we just allowed to brutalize people? And they had the body camera footage. Who's analyzing that? Somebody saw that footage. Other officers saw Hatfield knee somebody. Is there no accountability within that organization? And they have a union to protect them to keep brutalizing people? That's insane. For my job that I get paid for, I go into the Youth Intervention Center 3 times a month to talk about healthy relationships with the youth. 3 times a month, I see children in orange sweaters and gray sweatpants with no shoes on in a room for an hour. They get patted before they come in. They get patted down before they leave. They are up for 12 hours a day, and when they're not in classes or in programming, they're in a cell. These are children that are incarcerated. They have to earn extra privileges like nice soap and an extra phone call. So if we don't drop the charges, if you're not behind dropping the charges for these youth, they will become incarcerated. They will become part of a dehumanizing system. And then what does that say? Are we just saying that they're not worth anything because they're black and brown? And because they dare to ride a bike outside in their own community? Yep. That's all I have to say.
Typically, we have 3 minutes, but it's your first meeting, and I appreciate you being here, so I'm going to go
All right. Honestly, I wanted Cordell Booth, 400 block, Locust. I just said whatever he said. What that lady said before me, I forgot her name. I'm sorry. She's right. What the hell are the school resource officers doing at my school? Listen, I respect them. I talk to them. I try to communicate with them. I mean, for when I see them, they don't do anything. They sit in the hallways and they watch and wait for probably students to get into a fight. That's not okay. And I want them to start teaching students that are uneducated about about laws, because it's not okay. And I want my friends to be safe in my community. My friends invited me to play basketball tonight at the park, and I told them no, because I wanted to be here because this was a little bit more important than playing basketball. But also because I remember being in middle school and I was at that park, and there were two other people on the other side of the court getting absolutely harassed by officers, asking them questions and harassing them, and I didn't say a word because I was scared. I'm not scared anymore. I mean, Miss Baker, you said it. I'm trying to make my mom proud right now. And every single day that I go out and I represent her and my dad, I want to make them proud, man. And every day that I see kids that are going through this absolute BS, I can't take it anymore, and I'm not just gonna stand by and let it happen. And I really do want the mayor to be here, and I want the chief of police to be here, because they need to hear me and all of these other people talk about what they should do. Because again, as I've repeatedly had to say, it's not okay. It's not. When I leave next year, when I go off to college, whichever one of you two is the mayor, whichever one, which I will be voting in because I'll be 18. But whichever one of you is the mayor, how are you going to protect my friends that are still at McCaskey, that are still in the middle schools, that are still at these programs that I summer camp counsel at for months, trying to teach kids about the stuff that's happening in this messed up world and how they can stay safe and still be together and have community and feel community. All these people, I don't know any of these people except for a few. I don't know if I'm ever going to see them again, right? Everybody here is different. Everybody here is a different color, a different shade, different hair. We all deserve the same respect. And the last thing I'm going to say about the police is that thank God I was never in that situation. However, I know I have a permit. I have a driving permit. When I'm driving on the roads, whenever I see police, not only is my mom scared sometimes when we drive past the police, I have severe anxiety that's diagnosed by a doctor. I have anxiety when I drive by the police. I shouldn't be scared. They're there to protect me. I live in this city. My parents pay their salaries. I deserve to be safe in this city along with everybody else. All right, that's all I got.
Opportunity, as mentioned before, for the folks that might have been on the list for the first public comment period. So I'm going to say names. I may butcher them, but if any of these folks are here, please, you can come forward at this time. Aaliyah Moikos, Grace Musser, Megan Keller, Monda Wrights, and Ann Torres, and Iris Martinez, I believe, were the folks that were not here, if I have my notes correct. So if any of them are here, please come forward. You are not one of those people? No, that's fine. I don't see any of them right now. They can walk forward this time, but please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I'm sorry, I'm Ann Torres.
Oh, you did. Okay, thank you very much. My notes were a little jumbled from earlier. Thank you. Good evening, thank you.
Hi, good evening. Evelyn Morales, 900 block of Wallbank Street. I did not come here prepared to speak tonight, and just so you're aware who's in the room, we have a group of social work students here from Millersville, and so we are here to see how our government is functioning at a local level and your response to community concerns. So please be aware that this is the future you're sending out. That being said, I'm a city resident. I have 4 kids in the district, and I just wanted to reiterate that, yes, we should be teaching our kids how to ride a bike, but it's so much information. Think about how long it took you to pass a permit to get your driver's license. That is a lot that you're asking a 10-year-old to retain. And on top of that, we're changing the streets to accommodate these bike lanes, and no 2 streets are the same. So you're asking them to learn all this in real time when adults can't. So please, as you're continuing to expand these bike lanes, take that into consideration. Take into consideration your audience. Have more education in the schools and reach people where they are. We talk about different ways to reach people. Like, we're going to have a Zoom meeting. We're going to have something in person. We're going to have something that's walkable. So please, keep that in mind. Thank you.
Any additional comments for this period?
Okay, this is just for Susie Gomez, 100 block of North Reservoir Street. This is just for clarity. I am about to be 50 years old in 9 months. I have a 32-year-old and a 27-year-old. I literally had to address an officer to remove the handcuffs off of my son because he pulled him out of the back seat of a vehicle, okay? And he just put him on the floor as if they are just dogs. Okay, it is disgusting. I've been in this city since 1992. My daughter graduated from Lancaster Mennonite. She's 32. And my son graduated from McCaskey. He's 27. I am not a spring chick. Okay? I was under the administration with Ray D'Agostino, who is county commissioner, who was my boss. And I had dealings with a lot of people in the city. I've done my due diligence. I've done my community work, and I've damn sure done my homework, okay? And what I see is unexplainable. It's beyond words. That's why a lot of times I stutter, because it's unbelievable how much red tape and how much you're getting away with. There are people that need housing. There are issues in our city that need to be attended. And it is not a rocket science, because 1 + 1 = 2, to handle your responsibilities and address your oath that you declared to serve the people, not the administration. It is shameful to not see the mayor here or the police officer. But it's even more shameful how I can actually witness, being an ex-housing development coordinator, how much damage this administration and other people in power has done, not only to our neighborhoods. I can't even drive in the southeast because I got to keep dodging holes, because you guys don't even want to pave the streets with taxpayer dollar. But you got all these infrastructures, you got all these plans for Lancaster City, and none of them can actually, I can't even tell my 5 grandbabies that they have a future here, because they might not even afford to rent, let alone how to buy a house. It is shameful, especially for you motherless people that don't have a child and are making decisions based on taxpayer dollar. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should do your job and go out into the streets and actually get to know the community, meet with people that are paying your tax, that are paying your salary.
Are there any further comments for the second period?
Hi, Taylor Raymond again, 500 block of St. Joseph Street. Is it normal for the mayor and the chief of police to be at these meetings? Is this an unusual circumstance that they aren't here?
The chief of police normally doesn't attend regular meetings unless there's a report that's been requested, like we were talking about earlier. The mayor typically does attend these meetings. She has a prior commitment and was not able to be here, and that's as much as I can say. I don't have a way to compel the mayor to attend, but typically, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good
Hi.
evening.
Sorry, I didn't have, Leah Strickler, and I'm on North Charlotte Street. I didn't have anything prepared today, but I wanted to speak on the comments that people made about education and educating these kids and resources and that sort of thing. That's great, but at the end of the day, what should be happening is we should be holding these police officers accountable. It doesn't matter if these kids don't know the laws. They aren't in school for learning bike laws. They're in school, these police officers are the ones that need to be held accountable, not these kids, not their parents, not the community. It's the police brutality that's the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. evening.
Charges.
Alessandra Magalelli, 100 Block South N Street. I just have a quick question. Is anybody filing assault charges against these officers?
Are there any additional comments for this period?
Wait, did she answer the question?
Did you answer the question?
Answer the question.
I have no knowledge of any charges that are brought. I don't know one way or the other.
Has he even been put on administrative leave?
I do not know the answer to that question.
How do we get the answers?
I suspect that there will be additional communications coming out from the police bureau in the coming days. It's just not information that I have at this time.
Thank you.
I personally went down and filed a complaint with the police officers. I put it on Facebook.
Ms. Gomez.
Video. So if you wanted actions, use
We're-
go down and file a complaint against this officer.
Thank you.
Ms. Goodman, thank you. Are there any additional public comments for this period?
She's right.
Ms. Rosa, you have already gone, so I'll give you just a moment if you have additional comments. Thank you.
It was just a quick question. What's the best way to reach out to counselors to give our grievances and to work with y'all to get to see the change that we want done? Obviously, people can just come and yell at you, but like, what's the most productive way to get stuff done?
You're welcome to do that, but each of us have a contact information on the same city website that I was referencing earlier about finding legislation. I'm not sure if you're here for that part. Under the City of Lancaster, it's also just our first initial and last name at cityoflancaster.gov.
And do you have any information about the social workers that work within the police department and if they were involved in this incident?
I have no information about whether they were a part of this incident or not. I've seen nothing to indicate that they were, but I don't know for sure.
Thank you.
Are there additional comments for this period? Hearing none, we'll close the public comment period this evening, and I want to thank everyone for your participation. The next item on the agenda would have been a report of the mayor, but I don't have one from her at this time. The next item is the report of the president of council. I did give a statement earlier this evening, so I won't reiterate that, but I will say that as a childless person, I am also a city resident. I work with children every day as the director of programs for a nonprofit in the city that serves youth. And I take deep offense that I'm not qualified to make good decisions for our residents simply because I've chosen not to have a child. And that's nobody's business. But I choose to share that.
Cannot afford her rent.
Ms. Gomez, thank you. You've given your comment tonight. And I take offense to that statement. I would just like to say that I like to believe that I make good decisions. And if you don't believe that I make good decisions, please don't say that I do so because I don't have a child.
That's right.
Thank you. We now open it up to comments from council. Comments from council.
They don't got shit to say.
I'm going to down the road. Councilor Hirsch.
Because I do want to address the very full room that we have here tonight, and I want to say thank you all for coming, exercising your First Amendment right to petition, to assemble, and to protest. And it's your right to yell at us, and we have to listen, so that's part of the job. I really don't have a lot to say. I don't want to say all that much about the incident, because all I'm going to say is that there needs to be a thorough investigation of the events, because I was disturbed by what I saw as a citizen and as a stepdad. And I was an auditor, so I looked at details when I was in that role. I looked at documentation. It has to be thorough. There cannot be holes. I don't see how we get there without the body camera footage coming out, personally. We have a lot of between this resolution, and I've taken detailed notes on all the comments that came here tonight. We have a lot to consider. When we legislate, there are details. There are state laws. There are federal laws that govern and limit us in some capacity. But all of these ideas, I plan to research them. I plan to pursue them to the extent that we can alongside my colleagues. So again, I'm not going to say anything more, but I think council has work to do, and the police force absolutely has work to do in engaging the community and earning their trust back.
Yes, that's right.
Additional comments from council?
Council President, if I may.
I'm going to go right down the row, if that's okay with
Yeah,
everybody. I'm just, Councilor Diaz.
I would like to say that it was very disturbing watching the video. And just like Amanda says, just because I don't have children, it doesn't mean I don't understand. I lost a nephew who I was going to adopt at the age of 17 because he had cancer. And he was bullied because he was half white. So I also understand that. I have worked with the police. I have worked very hard to find ways to make it better. But there is also the executive, which is the mayor, that also has to make decisions on any policy that's going to come out. And it also goes to a solicitor. It's not something that is very easily done. But I just want to say thank you for coming, because it does show that you do care. That's all I have.
Councilor.
Thank you, Council President. And I just wanted to thank everybody who came out and spoke tonight. And I was disturbed by the videos as well. And, you know, some of the comments that have been made today, I resonated with about, you know, what is the power of council in these matters. And one of the powers of council is reports requested for council. And that is why I have requested a report on what the use of force policy is and what the review process will look like. And I look forward to seeing that report. And just one last comment, you know, we appreciate everybody who comes out and uses their political advocacy to speak at these meetings. But I just want to, you know, I'm very disturbed by comments, especially during Women's History Month, you know, calling out elected officials for not having children. I mean, we have to have decorum in these chambers. I understand people are very passionate about these issues, but, you know, we have people who are working very hard, and whether we have children or not, I mean, it's just unacceptable to be talking about that. And I hope that we could all learn from that and, you know, treat each other with respect when, you know, these are very distinguished chambers, and I take this very seriously. So these comments about people being childless, especially in a month that we're celebrating women's history, is unacceptable.
Any additional council comments? Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Council President. Just wanted to address the crowd that's here this evening. First, thank you for coming this evening to share your thoughts, your concerns, your ideas. You know, as my colleagues have mentioned, you know, part of the process whenever we're trying to find solutions is coming together. And even if the conversations are uncomfortable, they're very, very much important. And it's very humbling to see the community come together to drive some of these solutions. I saw the video. It was brought to my attention by a friend of mine that I was not aware of it before. And first I saw that video as myself. God knows that I've done worse things on my bike as a teenager. And then I saw it as a father. We set a goal for my son to learn how to ride his bike this summer. So first and foremost, before being an elected official, counselor, whatever, that's the lens that I'm seeing that video through. And I expect any city employee to have compassion, empathy, and accountability for our residents, and you can do all of those at the same time in a respectful, compassionate manner. And I believe and I'm optimistic in the leadership in this city, including my council colleagues, to come up with a solution that will create a culture where, as Mr. Booth said, make everyone feel safe. And that is the priority of everyone that works for the city of Lancaster. So thank you all for coming tonight, and we hear you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I thank you all for coming, and I already addressed the video on my platform. But I understand the concern raised by the community regarding the video. It was disturbing and it caused pain and concerns. Every resident of Lancaster deserves to feel safe and respected. And it is important that all interactions between law enforcement and city residents are handled with professionalism and respect. I believe that the department should conduct an independent investigation and take appropriate actions, because moments like this, we cannot afford to let this unchecked. Thank you all for coming.
Got everybody. I'm sorry, sir. Yes.
Since every one of the council members has already affirmed that you've seen the video and it's disturbing to all of you, can you not put pressure on the mayor to make some kind of decision?
Yes.
To make sure this officer is at least put on administrative leave within the next 24 to 48 hours.
We don't have additional comments from the public at this period, but I appreciate your question. The answer is that yes, I know that I will personally be in contact with the mayor tomorrow, very first thing in the morning. It's on a calendar. And I believe that the comments from members of council affirm our commitment to making sure that there's a resolution to this, and that it is expeditious, whatever that resolution may be. So thank you. Reached the end of our agenda for this evening, so at this time, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
It's so crazy to see you all.